Jaimie. Um, the house across the field that my sister was talking about. Before we moved in that house, um, my grandmother's sister and her husband lived there. They both worked for the Catholic school. And he died in that house. He had a heart attack. And he died in that house. And like there's other people that lived there previously, but they're all gone. They're deceased. They had their experiences. We had our experiences. Maybe people down the line that lived there after us had their experiences. But what we experienced, it made you think, like, is it just my mind playing tricks on me, or is it really happening, you know? Anyways, my grandfather, he would be my grandfather. He died in that house. And I remember we were coming from Crow. They loaded up as kids and we went to St. X to go be with my grandmother. So we went to her house, and you know, kids, we play around, we run around, and the adult ladies, like our aunties and our moms, you know, they're sitting outside on a picnic table. And I don't know, I must be about like 9, 8 years old. Don't remember. It's been that long. But anyways, they were outside and us kids were playing outside. There was a swing there, and we were playing on the swing. And my mother at the time was standing there with my other aunts. And like, you know, an Indian way, when you're raised by your grandparents, your mother is kind of like your sister, and her sisters are like your sisters, and her brothers, well, etc., etc. But anyways, we were standing out there and we were playing. This bunch of my other cousins and me, and my mother is sitting on a picnic table, and then the ladies are smoking. Everybody's inside the house. And all of a sudden, all I hear is like this wretched scream, like, what's going on, you know, like. And I look, and she's like screaming, and she runs in the house, and she's standing in the doorway, and they're like trying to calm her down. When you go in the house, there's steps. You gotta go up, and then there's that one entryway, and then there's the way to the basement. But she was standing right there above the basement, and they were asking her, what's going on? How come you screamed? What happened? What did you see? Or did you hear something? And she just kept crying and crying and crying. And she said, finally she kind of calmed down, and she said, my brother was calling for me out there, and he was saying, help me, help me. And before this happened to my grandfather, I want to say, I don't know, maybe like 2 years, 3 years before this, my uncle wrecked on 212, and he burned up in the vehicle. And I believe he's buried out there in a cemetery out there in St. X. But my mother said she heard him calling her name, telling her to help him. And when she looked, she said she saw him standing there. So that really freaked her out. So they told all us kids to stay inside. We stayed inside. We didn't go out after that. We just stayed inside. That was my first experience with that house. We didn't live there yet. Then my grandparents retired from the government, and my grandmother got a job at St. X as a cook. And she said, we're going to be moving to St. X. So I was like, oh, okay, we're moving to this little town, whatever. So we get out there. This house is across from the school, the house that we're going to be living in. So it's me and my siblings, and this is like a 4-bedroom house. And it's, at first, you kind of like, oh yeah, we're going to live here. Oh, we hear all these stories about St. X, this and that. So we moved in this house, and at first it was okay. Nothing like really happened, or we didn't hear nothing. After a while, it was just kind of like sometimes it was just me and the younger siblings. We'd be at home alone at night. And we were real close to a sister that lived there. She's gone now. But we got really close to her. Her name was Sister Claver. So when we were home alone, we'd walk to her house, because she lived down about kitty corner from the church in the nuns covenant that my sister was talking about. I believe it's a classroom now or something. But anyways, we walk to her house and we go sit with her. And we tell her that, oh, we got scared, or we didn't want to be at home alone because nobody was there. She'd be like, oh, you kids, you don't need to be scared. God's always with you. And she'd always say that you should be more afraid of a human than a spirit, because a human can hurt you. So one night we were home, and my sisters were watching TV, and we were sitting there, and they went to bed, and I went to my other sister's room, and we went out, and her room is on the one corner there. She always left her windows open at night. And we were sleeping. My cousin used to stay with us a lot too, and we were all sleeping on this big old bed of hers. And I don't know why, but one of my little sisters, come in the room, and she's like tapping my foot. And when someone's tapping your foot in the middle of the night, yeah, you're gonna get scared. It's scared shitless. Like, oh my God, who's touching my toes? Or So I woke up and she was standing there, and she said, "There's someone playing basketball outside." And then I said, "Oh, it's probably just someone on the neighborhood kids, or people that live down the road, probably playing basketball." And she's like, "Yeah, they're getting really loud." So I nudged my cousin that was laying by me, and she's kind of woke up, and she looked at me, and she said, "There's someone playing outside." And she's like, "Oh, probably nothing." So we sat there, and my sister, she didn't want to go back to her room. So I was like, all right, well, look. So we got up, and we were standing by the window, and we kind of moved the curtain over a little bit just to peek out. And we looked out, and here we heard the ball. It was dribbling. There was a basketball. We heard it, but we didn't see anybody. And then I was like, oh man. Now my heart's starting to race, I'm like starting to freak out, like get scared. And I look at my cousin, and I was like, oh man, there's nobody out there, And then I just we look at my little sister, and I'm like, just go back to bed. There's kids playing ball over there. So she goes out, goes back in the room, goes in her room. And I get up and I turn on the TV and I put a movie on. And I'm like, look at her, look at my cousin. She looks at me, and I'm like, there's nobody out there, huh? And she says, no. I said, but you can hear them laughing and playing basketball. And I was like, oh man, it's like, this ain't cool. This is not good, you know? So we just later had the TV on in the room, and we're just laying in the bed, and we're talking, and this whole time we're talking, the windows are open, and you just hear the ball bouncing and bouncing, and you hear people laughing, and I was like, oh, let's go to sleep now, because the sun started coming up. So we went to sleep, and man, it was like, every night was something different, something, just like something creepy, you know, like you always had that creepy feeling, like you always had to make sure you're watching yourself, or look around, you know. And oh, I hated that. I just hated that. I just hated being in that house. I hated being there for myself. I just hated that. It was just so scary, because you knew the cemetery is right there. And this one time our grandparents and them went out of town. So it was me and my sister and my cousin and some of our friends. They came and stayed with us out there. And we were like, wow, let's go cruise around. I said, okay. So we got in my sister's car, and we were driving around. We used to go out to Fort Smith, drive around out there, come back. Because, you know, we're country bunking kids, you know, that's what we did, you know. And we go and we cruise, and we come back to the house. And it must have been about like 3, 4 in the morning. We were coming back from Fort Smith. And we got close to St. X. And mind you, it's a little 4-way there. We got there, and we noticed there was no cars. And I told my sister, I said, let's go make a loop all the way around and come out by the dumps, and we'll go home. And she said, okay. So we went, got on the gravel road, and we were coming. Right when we got on the gravel road, maybe about not too far down from the pavement, these lights came on behind us. And we all like start screaming, and like, oh my God, where'd this car come from? And we're all freaking out. Here, this car followed us. And we drove fast. We got by the dumps. We come around that corner, and we were coming. And we turned off into that house that was across the field. We turned into that lane and shut our lights off. And mind you, my sister had a white car, so I don't know how we were supposed to be camouflaged. But we pulled in there, and we waited for this car to come. This car never came. So we backed up, blazed out, went around the school, parked her car, jumped off, and ran in the house and locked the doors. And we stayed in the house, and we didn't go out. And then we all just kind of sat in the living room, and we all start talking, and we're like, was that car really real, or were we just imagining it? Or were we that tired that we didn't, you know, we couldn't really tell, like, if it was real or not. That was one of the experiences. But like I said, there's so many things that happened to us out there that